Okay, so I'll ask you. Hello, Joe Solo.
Hello.
It's an absolute pleasure to be talking with you.
Sounds sincere. Thank you.
No, it is sincere, sir. It is sincere. Question is, and this is a question, and I kind of know as a songwriter of some little success myself how difficult it is to explain this. But how do you go around? How do you go about? Excuse me, coming up with songs? Do you have a formula?
No, it's kind of easier for me, I think, because I don't really think about it. They come when they come, and I don't really try and force them. I don't sit down there and think I must write a song. I'm in washing machines for a living, so I meet a lot of people, and I just like talking, as you probably gather. And so I try and talk to people, and people tell you amazing stories, absolutely amazing stories about their lives, that are tragic, comic, you know, absolutely stunning sometimes, far more heroic than anything you'll read about in the tabloid press or see on the telly. They're just the tiny little stories of people's lives never ever fail to amaze me. And so when someone touches us, I think the best way you can describe it is you attach a particular feeling to a story or to an idea, and when you have that feeling again, you think about that particular story or that particular idea, and sooner or later it kind of formulates into some kind of order in your mind and comes out as one thing. And the actual process of finishing it off is relatively quick. The story can be in my head for months, but actually finishing the song off can take, you know, a few minutes. It's just when you get that feeling again. Sometimes you forget them until you get that feeling again. It's all about feeling it.
Could I just ask you about Pottersfield? And could I ask you how Pottersfield came about?
Well, it started off as well. I've read books on the First World War since I was at school. I did the first time I ever really listened in an English lesson, to be honest with you, was when we did Wilfred Owen. I thought it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It was the first time I thought, you know, words are so powerful. You know, all the rest of the time have been airy fairy stuff like Shelley and that, and you're sort of hunting around for meaning, and if you're not that bright, then you can't always find that meaning, you know. But Wilfred Owen seemed to sort of like slap me in the face, and I loved that, and the imagery of it was so graphic, so clear that it sort of runs through your head like an entire narrative, like a film. And so that was the first time I thought, God, these words are so powerful. That's brilliant, and I wanted to know everything about the history of it, and so I read and I read and I read and I read, and I heard other people's singing songs about the First World War and stuff, but I never had the courage to really do it. But I kind of sat down one day and wrote one, and then three came out, and they were on a record I did in 2008. And a chap called Graham Rhodes, who was a playwright and photographer from Scarborough, asked me if I would write some more songs as sort of a soundtrack to a play he was writing on the subject, which I agreed to, and I started writing them all. I finished and I had 13 songs, and I put them all on one record, Music from Pottersfield, with the express intention really of touring this play and you know, the soundtrack being available really. But the play fell through because the drama company split up, and so obviously I released a CD anyway. But there's a lot. It's an acquired taste, I think. People aren't always interested in songs about the First World War. They think they've heard everything before, so they're not really interested in it. But it has its devotees, you know. It has really obsessive fans, that record, which I love. You know, you know that you've written something that touches people, and that's the whole reason you write music, write words. But I wanted to do that, to write words so powerful that the image stayed in somebody's head, the way that Wilfred Owen did for me, you know. So it was basically, it came from there. And after that, me and my friend Andy, we did a book to accompany it, so each song has a story, so it's on the two different formats, and we're working through the lives. Now it's taking a form of its own. Now it's going to turn into a kind of social history of the 20th century, if you like, following those characters out of the war, or their families out of the war and into the post-war years, which is the record I've just done, Music from Pottersfield Volume 2. 1920s, the kind of emotional fallout from the war. And we're going to basically trace the 20th century through like working people's lives and see how it comes out.
Sounds
Should be
good.
all right?
Sounds good to me, Joe. Now, the question I need to ask you, and this is a personal question because I'm a big fan. Joe Strummer, what does he mean to you? Because he means an awful lot to me, and I'm being quite honest here.
It's hard to describe this. My mate Andy probably sums this up best. Without the Clash, it isn't a question of what you might have been. It's a question of who you might have been. He's somebody brilliant. It's such a life-changing band. If you didn't get it, you didn't get it. But if you did, it was amazing. It wasn't a rock and roll band trying to sell you a lifestyle or trying to sell you some spiel or trying to tell you to be like them. You know, it was a rock and roll band saying, think for yourselves. You know, listen, formulate an opinion, and think for yourself. And that, as a teenage kid, it's probably like to a lot of people, he was probably the father they never had in a lot of ways. Which is that whole idea of you know, yeah, I can have an opinion, I can think another way, I can look at a story or look at a piece of news and formulate an opinion on it. I don't need other people to do that for me, and that's kind of a revelation when you're 13 years old, and I don't think you ever change.
Good set, mate.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. Good man, fist in the air, I like that. Feel left winger still up. No, I think that's it. I think
We're all still here.
good man. The whole thinking behind a band, you know, the music's one thing, but the life you lead after hearing that music's a completely different thing altogether. It's massive. You'll find Clash fans in all sorts of walks of life, and they all think for themselves. They all think differently. They've all got great ideas. They're not all just balding old punk rockers. Some of these guys are in places you wouldn't imagine, and they're thinking about what they're doing, and they're doing it because it's up there. It's in there.
That's quite true, and I agree, Joe. One last question. I know you're doing your EPs, and I know you're doing your albums, and I know you're doing your writing. What would you ultimately like to do? That's an odd question, and I've just dropped it on you.
That's what I do. I write songs. I just want to get better at that. Get better at getting the characters right. Get better at putting them across to people, putting a smile on people's faces, making them think. It's just about that. You can do that as long as you want in folk music. In fact, the older you are in folk music, the better you are, because I think people are more likely to respect your opinion if you've got a few years on. You know, I'm not somebody who craves success. I'm quite happy to put my guitar down and go back to my family. I do like a room full of people I can harangue though. I like that. But my sort of music works sort of small theatres, small pubs, small rooms. You know, you can't very well pass out the 60,000 eggs at Wembley and get people to shake along to Tom Payne's Bro.
I've tried not to laugh. I know exactly what you're saying.
Imagine this giant bucket.
Absolutely.
Good evening, Glastonbury. Pass
Hey!
150,000 eggs round.
But I like
By the
that.
time you've got them all, I'll have gone.
I like the idea though, Joe, of 3,000 million eggs passing round Glastonbury. Joe Solo, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
And long may you continue, sir.